Okay, let's unpack this. When you hear audit, maybe, uh, you picture someone just poring over spreadsheets, right?
Yeah.
In a quiet room somewhere.
Hmm.
But in the world of information systems, executing an IS audit is actually much closer to, well, detective work.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's about getting hands-on, really digging into the digital guts of an organization to figure out if everything's reliable, secure, and, playing by the rules.
Exactly.
So this deep dive is all about what happens after the initial planning, the execution phase. What does that work on the ground actually look like?
Right.
We're pulling insights from guidance material that kind of lays out the step-by-step process and the essential tools IS auditors have in their belt.
The playbook, essentially.
Yeah. So our mission today is to walk through this execution process with you, understand the critical stages, the key techniques auditors use, the challenges they face,
Uh-huh.
and even how new ideas like agile approaches and powerful tools like AI are, well, changing the game. We're going to uncover what auditors actually do.
That's right. If planning is, say, setting the map and deciding the destination, execution is the journey itself.
Okay.
It's where the auditor actively gathers the necessary evidence, based on the scope and objectives defined earlier.
Right, from the planning.
Yeah. Then evaluates controls using that evidence, performs the actual testing, and then synthesizes all of that to report findings back to management.
So it's less about theory and much more about the practical reality, figuring out what's truly happening inside those complex systems.
Exactly. It's a sequence of very practical steps. You start with the defined scope, objectives, and the criteria you'll measure against.
Got it.
Then you perform the specific audit procedures to collect the evidence. Then review and evaluate what you found, form solid conclusions based on that evidence, and finally communicate those conclusions, but only after discussing them with the people involved, the auditees.
And this isn't something auditors can just do in a vacuum. They need support from the business side, right?
Oh, absolutely essential. For the audit to succeed, management has to ensure the team has the necessary resources.
Like time, budget.
Time, budget, access, yeah. They also need to help with scheduling the procedures and, especially for internal audits, be committed to following up on the corrective actions.
That follow-up is key.
It really is. Otherwise, what's the point?
Thinking about all those moving parts, it sounds less like a single task and, well, more like managing a whole project.
It really is a project management exercise.
Mm.
There's specific project planning just for the audit engagement itself, considering, unique risks to the audit.
Okay.
You build a detailed plan, specific tasks, realistic time estimates, a timeline,
Huh.
and you have to coordinate closely with the auditee's availability.
Right. They have jobs to do too.
Exactly. Then you execute against that plan, constantly monitoring progress, comparing how things are going against the plan, and proactively managing any challenges to make sure you cover the scope within the time and budget.
Okay. Earlier you mentioned objectives. I think sometimes there can be a bit of confusion here. What's the real difference between an audit objective and a control objective? They sound kind of similar.
Yeah, that's a crucial distinction. A control objective describes the desired outcome of an internal control, what the control should achieve.
Like, ensure data is accurate. Something like that.
Pretty much. Like,
Yeah.
ensure all financial transactions are accurately recorded. That's a control objective. An audit objective, on the other hand, is the specific goal the auditor aims to achieve during this particular engagement.
Okay.
An audit usually has several audit objectives guiding the work.
And those audit objectives, they're often designed to check if the control objectives are actually being met in reality.
Precisely. A primary goal of an IS audit is to identify the relevant control objectives for whatever system or process you're looking at, and then identify the controls management has put in place to meet them. The audit's objective is then to test if those controls exist, if they're designed okay, if they're working effectively,
Right.
and ultimately, whether they're helping minimize business risk, plus ensuring compliance with laws, regs, and protecting, the CIA triad confidentiality, integrity, availability.
There's a really helpful example in the sources that kind of translates a general financial audit objective into a specific IS audit one. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, what's fascinating here is how a broad financial statement goal, like all transactions are properly posted, becomes a very specific technical question for the IS auditor.
Okay.
The IS audit objective might be something like, do the system's editing features, the ones that run before posting. Do they effectively detect coding errors that could mess up the posting?
Ah, I see. So it's bridging the business need with the technical control.
Exactly. The IS auditor needs to understand that translation.
And sometimes, instead of just focusing on the control itself, the audit might look directly at the data, the output.
This raises an important point about audit strategy. Yes, often auditors perform what's called substantive testing,
Substantive testing.
which means directly assessing the integrity, accuracy, completeness of the actual transactions or data, not just testing the control, processing the data.
Okay.
This is common if controls seem weak or if you're dealing with huge amounts of electronic data. And you often use specialized tools for this. CAETs, computer-assisted audit techniques, we'll definitely dive into those later.
Right, CACETs. Okay, so if we picture audit execution as navigating a complex landscape, what are the main territories or phases you move through after that initial detailed planning?
Well, the source material kind of breaks it down into three main interconnected phases for execution. First, getting ready, which is those detailed planning steps.
Okay.
Second, doing the work and keeping track, that's field work and documentation.
Right.
And third, sharing what you found and ensuring action reporting and follow-up.
Let's start with that detailed planning phase, the final prep before hitting the ground. What are the steps there?
It gets pretty granular. Step 1, determine the audit subject. Clearly identify what you're auditing. A specific system, function, process, maybe a location.
Got it.
Step 2, define the specific audit objective, the precise purpose of this engagement.
Okay.
Step 3, set the scope. This is absolutely critical. Define exactly what systems, functions, organizational units are in scope. And just as importantly, what's out of scope.
Yeah, scope creep is a real thing.
Oh yeah. A clear scope helps clarify the IT environment, identify the tech expertise you'll need, and pinpoints exactly where testing will happen.
And step 4 is pre-audit planning. Sounds like doing your homework before the field work really starts.
It's exactly that.
Yeah.
This is where you do a risk assessment. Essential for risk-based audits, but honestly valuable even for compliance audits, just to justify the effort and focus. You interview the auditee, understand their perspective, their concerns,
Right.
identify any specific regulatory or legal requirements.
Right.
And based on all that, the team figures out the resources needed. Specific technical skills, budget, locations to visit, team roles, a detailed timeline.
Wow.
Sources of info like policies, diagrams, past audit papers, key contacts, and a communication plan to keep everyone in the loop.
That feels like a huge amount of crucial foundational work. What's the final step in this detailed planning part?
Determine the specific audit procedures in the data gathering steps. So now you have your subject, objective, scope, resource plan.
Right.
You select the overall audit approach and start building the detailed audit program, that step-by-step list of what you'll actually do.
Okay.
This involves getting relevant policies, confirming legal stuff, identifying who you need to interview, choosing the best methods and tools for testing, developing the actual test scripts, and defining the criteria for evaluating the results. What does good look like?
Okay, let's transition to the fieldwork documentation phase. This is where the plan really comes to life, right? What are the steps here?
This is where the auditor is actively collecting evidence and performing tests. Step 1, acquire data. You need a reliable process to get the info you need.
Like asking for it in advance.
Yeah, maybe using an advance request list shared with the auditee. Crucially, this evidence has to be collected and stored securely. Tools like GRC systems can really help manage this.
GRC, governance risk compliance.
Exactly.
Yep.
Step 2, test controls. Use various techniques, interviews, observations, inspecting documents or system configurations, sampling,
Okay.
to evaluate if controls are operating as intended. Like you might watch a sample of employees, see if they lock their screens, or check system logs to confirm patching happened on schedule.
And as you're doing that testing, you're actively looking for deviation problems.
Precisely. Step 3, discover and validate issues. Issues are basically deviations from what's expected.
Like a control failure.
It could be a control failure, a missing policy, a configuration error. Yeah. These issues, once you validate them with the auditee, make sure you understand them correctly, they form the basis for your recommendations.
Gotcha.
Step 4, document results. Every step performed, every piece of evidence collected, every test result, every finding. It all must be meticulously documented in the audit program and the audit work papers, following standards.
Got it. Meticulous is the word. And finally, the reporting follow-up phase. The work's done. Now you have to share what you found.
Right. Step 1, gather report requirements. What needs to be in the report? Who's the audience? What standards does it need to meet? Internal, external.
Okay.
Step 2, draft the report. A preliminary draft gets created, reviewed internally by audit management, and then shared with the auditee for their review and input.
So they get a chance to see it first.
Yes, the report includes findings, their significance, recommendations. The auditee provides their planned actions and timeline for fixing things.
Hmm.
Step 3, issue the report. Once it's finalized, incorporating appropriate auditee responses, the report is formally issued to the auditee and other relevant parties. It's retained per policy and often summarized for high-level oversight, like the audit committee.
Right.
Step 4, follow up. You need a formal process to monitor management's progress in actually implementing those agreed-upon corrective actions. Make sure the issues actually get fixed.
So the audit program we talked about earlier, that step-by-step list, that's the real blueprint you follow during field work.
Yeah. Exactly. It's the detailed plan of procedures, but it's tailored to the specific audit. Its purposes are vital. It provides formal, repeatable documentation of the steps.
Okay.
Clarifies the type of testing, are we checking compliance, or looking at the substance of the data, and it shows you followed planning standards.
What different viewpoints or angles does an IS auditor need to consider when building that program?
Well, they need to look at IT from multiple perspectives. Security, definitely in CIA triad. Quality, is it effective, efficient? Fiduciary responsibilities, compliance, data reliability, especially financial data, service levels, capacity. The program essentially maps out the strategy for getting enough good evidence to support conclusions across all those areas.
And where do audit work papers fit into this? Are they like the detailed notes from the journey?
Think of them as the detailed travel log and the collection of evidence gathered along the way. They are the actual documentation,
Okay.
planning notes, the audit program itself, records of tests performed, the evidence collected, screenshots, logs, signed documents, whatever. Findings identified, conclusions reached. They are absolutely critical for maintaining the integrity of the evidence and providing that clear, traceable link from the objectives to the final report.
So the report is kind of a summary of the work papers.
In a way, yeah. The report itself is essentially a high-level work paper summarizing the key findings from all that detailed documentation.
And since they contain sensitive findings, system details, I imagine securing those work papers is just as important as securing the systems being audited.
You've hit on a critical point there. Work papers often contain highly sensitive info about vulnerabilities or weaknesses.
Yeah, you wouldn't want those getting out.
Absolutely not. They require robust security. Same level, maybe even higher than the systems being audited. Policies must govern custody, retention periods, secure destruction, following legal and regulatory rules.
Makes sense.
They have to be clear, complete, easily retrievable, properly managed, because they are the sole support for the findings and conclusions. And materiality is key here, too.
Materiality, meaning significance.
Right. Yeah, deciding which findings documented in the work papers are significant enough to make it into the final report for different levels of management. Not every typo needs to go to the board, right?
Right. Okay. Audits focus on controls, but sometimes during execution, something more serious might surface, like potential fraud.
That's a constant consideration, unfortunately. While management is primarily responsible for preventing and detecting fraud through controls, well, we know controls aren't perfect.
It can be bypassed.
They can fail due to vulnerabilities, management override, collusion, all sorts of ways.
So the auditor needs to have that sort of detective's mindset, be alert for indicators.
Absolutely. An IS auditor must exercise due professional care, maintain professional skepticism throughout the whole thing.
Skepticism, okay.
They need to understand the opportunities and means for fraud, especially in IT environments where complexity can sometimes mask things. Recognizing potential fraud indicators is a key skill.
And if something looks suspicious, what then?
Well, they evaluate it carefully. If they identify potential instances of fraud, they have a responsibility to communicate the need for a more detailed investigation
To who?
to the appropriate internal channels, or maybe external authorities, depending on the situation. For major fraud or really high risk, audit management should inform the audit committee promptly.
Okay.
And auditors also need to know about any specific legal obligations they have for reporting fraud in their jurisdiction.
Right, legal requirements vary. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. The sources talk about agile auditing. That sounds like a fundamental shift, borrowing ideas from software development, right?
It is a significant evolution, yeah. Agile auditing aims to make the audit process faster, more responsive, more efficient, deliver value more quickly.
How so?
Compared to traditional, often sort of waterfall-like audit processes with strict gates between phases.
Right, plan, do, check, act. Very linear.
Exactly. Agile emphasizes individuals and interactions, delivering working outputs like preliminary findings frequently, collaborating closely with the customer.
The oddity.
The auditee stakeholders, yeah. And
Yeah.
being able to respond to change.
So how does that change the sort of sequential flow of planning, fieldwork reporting that we just walked through?
Agile deliberately blurs those lines. It doesn't necessarily get rid of the phases, but it makes them overlap a lot or run in parallel.
Okay.
Planning happens in shorter cycles, maybe sprints. Fieldwork starts sooner based on that initial plan. And preliminary findings are communicated continuously, not just saved up for a big final report.
Ah,
You
interesting.
might be analyzing data from one area while you're still finalizing the detailed plan for another.
Yep.
Cuts down on idle time and bottlenecks.
What are the big wins then? Why would an organization adopt Agile for IS audit?
The benefits can be substantial. You significantly cut the end-to-end time from planning to getting initial insights. Think weeks or days instead of months.
Wow.
Engagements become more streamlined by combining or overlapping activities. You get direct collaboration with the auditee throughout, which helps with buy-in.
Yeah, they're part of the process.
Exactly. The scope can be more flexible, adjusting as new info comes up with approvals, of course. You provide real-time assurance by sharing findings iteratively.
Instead of the big reveal at the end.
Right. And the overall audit plan itself can be updated more often, maybe quarterly, to stay aligned with rapidly changing business risks.
That sounds less rigid, for sure. Does this approach clash with established audit standards, like ISACA's ITAF?
What's fascinating here is that it's largely seen as complementary to standards like ITAF.
Oh, okay.
Agile's emphasis on collaboration, if managed right, can actually enhance independence and objectivity by making sure the auditor leverages business expertise without compromising their judgment.
Right.
Its focus on prioritization fits with due professional care. Sprints can help staff proficiency. Collaboration helps the team understand the business better. Continuous communication helps with follow-up. And Agile even uses things like retrospectives as a built-in quality assurance tool to learn and improve.
Okay, shifting back to fieldwork. When you're testing, how do you decide what specific items to test and how many? You can't test everything, usually.
That's where audit testing and very often sampling come into play. The goal is always sufficient, appropriate evidence. Testing everything is rarely feasible, time, cost, especially with large data sets. So auditors use sampling, examine a subset to draw conclusions about the whole population.
You mentioned different types of testing earlier, compliance versus substantive. How do those relate to sampling?
Good question. Compliance testing focuses on how a control operates. Does it work as intended, consistently, according to policy?
Like checking for approvals.
Exactly. You might sample transactions to see if required approvals are there. Substantive testing focuses on the data itself. Is the transaction accurate, complete, valid?
Recalculating something?
Yeah, you might sample loan calculations to verify their accuracy. That's substantive.
Can you give us clear examples of sampling for both?
Sure. For compliance testing, maybe sample 50 user access change requests from the past year. Check if each one has the required manager signature. That tests the user access control.
Okay.
For substantive testing, maybe sample 100 items from an inventory report, physically verify the quantities listed against counts in the warehouse. That tests the inventory data integrity.
And there's a relationship between how strong the controls seem and how much substantive testing you need to do.
Oh, definitely. There's a direct correlation. If your compliance testing shows controls are strong, you trust them. You might be able to reduce the amount of substantive testing because you have some assurance the system is processing data correctly.
Makes sense.
But conversely, if control testing shows weaknesses, you probably need to increase substantive testing to get enough assurance about the data itself.
Okay, let's get into the sampling methods. I hear terms like statistical versus non-statistical.
Right. Statistical sampling is objective, uses probability theory. You use formulas for sample size, select items randomly or systematically, evaluate results mathematically.
So you can quantify the risk?
Exactly. You can quantify sampling risk, express confidence levels. Non-statistical or judgmental sampling relies on the auditor's professional judgment.
Judgmental. Okay.
Yeah, you use judgment to decide sample size, which items to pick, often focusing on high-value or high-risk items. It's more subjective, can't be statistically projected.
This raises an important question about the risk inherent in just looking at a sample.
That's sampling risk. The risk that your conclusion from the sample is different from what you'd find if you tested everything.
And there are two ways that can go wrong.
Yep. Two main types, Risk of incorrect acceptance. You say controls are fine or data's okay, but they're not. You missed a material issue, bad outcome,
Right.
and the risk of incorrect rejection. You do there's an issue when there isn't. Leads to unnecessary work, maybe disagreements. Also not great.
Okay. And types of sample and techniques within those broader methods, attribute versus variable.
Right. Attribute sampling is mostly for compliance testing. Looking for the presence or absence of a characteristic, like does this transaction have an approval? Yes or no?
How many have it, how many don't?
Exactly. How many? Types include simple attribute sampling, stop or go, where you stop early if error rates are really low or high, and discovery sampling, if you're looking for something rare like fraud.
Okay. And variable.
Variable sampling is for substantive testing. Estimating a value, how much, like what's the estimated total dollar value of errors in this account? Techniques include mean per unit or difference estimation.
It sounds like you don't need to be a, a PhD statistician, but you definitely need a solid grasp of the principles and the risks to use sampling effectively.
Precisely. You need to understand the different techniques, know when to apply which one, how to design a reliable sample for your objective, and critically understand and interpret the results and the associated sampling risk. It's not just about picking numbers.
Right. Okay, so audit conclusions ultimately stand or fall based on the evidence collected. What kind of evidence are auditors looking for during execution, and what techniques do they use to gather it?
Evidence is basically any information that helps the auditor figure out if something meets the criteria and supports their conclusions.
Okay.
For it to be good evidence, it needs to be sufficient enough of it relevant. It actually relates to the objective and competent, which means reliable and relevant.
What makes a piece of evidence reliable? What gives it weight?
Several factors. Independence of the source is a big one. Evidence from outside parties, like a bank confirmation or a vendor contract, is usually more reliable than internal stuff.
Right, less chance of bias.
Exactly. Qualifications of the provider matter too. Objectivity is crucial. Direct observation or system logs are usually more objective than, say, subjective statements from interviews. And timing is important, especially with dynamic IT systems. Evidence captured closer to the event is often more reliable.
What are some common techniques auditors use to gather this evidence on the ground?
Well, they review IS organizational structures, looking for things like proper segregation of duties. They review policies, procedures, standards. Do they exist? Are they current? Do they seem adequate? They dig into documentation.
Lots of
A
reading.
huge source of evidence. System design docs, user manuals, security configurations, change logs, incident reports, even stuff in modern collaboration tools.
Talking to people seems fundamental too.
Interviews are vital, but they should be planned. Clear objectives, maybe an outline. Notes should be documented quickly and ideally verified with the interviewee.
And a tone matters.
Absolutely, non-accusatory. You're there to gather information, understand processes, identify concerns, not point fingers.
And observing processes in action, seeing it happen.
Observation provides direct evidence of how things actually operate. See processes performed, assess security awareness, compare practices to policies.
But there's a downside.
Yeah, the challenge is the risk that people might change their behavior because they know you're watching. The Hawthorne effect. Kind of.
Right. What about techniques like reperformance or walkthroughs?
Reperformance is powerful. The auditor independently does the control step themselves to see if it works. Provides very strong evidence.
Like recalculating something yourself.
Exactly. Walkthroughs are more about tracing a transaction or process through the system with the auditee. They mainly help confirm your understanding of the flow and identify where key evidence might be found.
So it's really a mix, reviewing documents, talking to people, observing, and actively testing by reperforming tasks.
Yes, exactly. It's a multifaceted approach. You combine examination testing controls and evidence with review, inquiry through interviews, and observation to build a comprehensive picture and get that sufficient appropriate evidence.
Speaking of testing and evidence, technology is obviously transforming how IS audits get done. How is data analytics used?
Data analytics is a game changer. Leveraging technology lets auditors move beyond just sampling small bits of data and analyze entire populations, potentially even continuously. This scale and speed lets them spot abnormalities, uncover hidden risks, verify compliance across massive data sets in ways they just couldn't before.
What specific benefits does data analytics bring to that fieldwork phase?
Well, it helps determine how effective controls and anti-fraud procedures really are by analyzing patterns. It can pinpoint process errors or inefficiencies.
Find exceptions.
Exactly. Identify exceptions that need investigation. help detect potential fraud by looking for anomalies, highlight areas with poor data quality. It can even help with risk assessment during planning by showing high-risk transaction types.
And there's a typical process auditors follow when using analytics. It's not just point and click.
No, it's structured. You set the scope and objectives for the analytics, test what data do you need, then identify and get that data.
Okay.
A critical step is validating the data. Is it complete, accurate, reliable? Does it reconcile to other sources?
Data quality is key.
Absolutely. Then you execute the tests, run scripts, use analytical tools, document and review the results. Retain the necessary files and scripts.
This capability seems to build on something called CATs. You mentioned them earlier.
Yes, computer-assisted audit techniques, CATs. They're really the foundation for this data-driven approach. Tools and techniques to automate audit tasks.
Especially with complex systems.
Right. Especially when systems are complex, lack paper trails, or involve huge volumes of electronic data. CATs empower auditors to get independent access to system data and analyze it.
What are some examples?
Things like generalized audit software, ACL or IDA, are common ones. Utility software, test data generators, even expert systems. They're used for tons of stuff. Testing transactions, controls, vulnerability assessments, pen testing.
What factors should an auditor consider when deciding whether to use a CAT for a specific test?
You got to weigh the costs versus the benefits. Factors include the effort to learn and use the tool, training, flexibility, installation hassles, processing speed.
And getting the data ready.
Yeah, often a significant effort just extracting and formatting source data for the C8. And crucially, ensuring the integrity and confidentiality of production data. Usually work with copies, use read-only access.
Right, protect the live system. And C8s are pretty much essential for enabling continuous auditing.
Absolutely. CATs are key tools that support continuous online auditing techniques. Continuous auditing means monitoring systems and gathering evidence in real time or near real time.
Shrinks the time lag.
Significantly, between something questionable happening and the auditor knowing about it.
How is that different from continuous monitoring? They sound very similar.
This raises that important question about independence again. Continuous auditing involves tests and assessments done by the auditor.
Okay.
Continuous monitoring is done by the organization itself, monitoring its own processes or systems, like automated controls, checking data quality, or intrusion detection systems.
So monitoring is management's job.
Right. Continuous auditing is independent. Continuous monitoring is a management responsibility. Audit might help develop a technique and hand it over for monitoring, but monitoring doesn't replace independent audit assurance.
Got it. What are some specific automated techniques mentioned that enable continuous auditing?
The sources list 5 key ones. Scarfeme embedding audit software and applications. Snapshots tagging transactions and tracking them. Audit hooks embedding triggers and code for red flags.
Okay.
Integrated test facility, or ITF, using dummy entities in production. And continuous and intermittent simulation, CIS, simulating transaction processing.
Wow, some complex names there.
Yeah, the choice depends on the system and the auditor's tech skills. They work across different data levels.
And finally, AI and machine learning, starting to significantly impact IS audit. This feels like the next frontier.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because AI and ML are seen as the next evolution, building on CATs. The goal is more efficiency, more effectiveness, maybe less risk.
How? By automating stuff.
Exactly. They can automate many tedious manual tasks, reviewing huge documents, manipulating data, freeing up auditors for more analysis. They might allow testing larger populations, maybe even 100%, or give more time for interpreting complex results.
What kinds of tasks specifically in IS audit execution can AML automate or help with?
The potential is broad. In planning, maybe help select audit candidates based on risk patterns, or analyze policies to auto-generate checklists.
Okay.
During fieldwork, automate routine testing, build predictive models for risk or fraud, help with data aggregation, interpretation, maybe automate sample selection and testing.
Then reporting.
Yeah, drafting report text, creating visualizations, helping quantify the impact of findings. Techniques include things like natural language processing, NLP, predictive analytics, robotic process automation, RPA.
I'll pay for the clicks.
Yeah, automating repetitive clicks, document classification, text summarization, statistical analysis, lots of tools.
But using AI isn't like flipping a magic switch, right? You can't just blindly trust the output.
This raises perhaps the most important question about AI and audit. Algorithms are just tools, designed by people. They're not inherently correct.
So the human element is still critical.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Auditors must understand the algorithms, know how they work conceptually, ask critical questions, interpret the results correctly, and always remember errors or biases are possible. Over-reliance without critical human review is a huge risk.
What are the key risks and considerations auditors need to grapple with when leveraging AML?
Well, a primary one is that human tendency to just trust the machine output without enough validation.
Yeah.
Auditors must interpret and validate.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Totally. The quality of results depends entirely on the input data. Using bad or insufficient training data is a major risk leading to bad outcomes. Understanding statistical significance is vital.
Right.
Auditors have to ensure conclusions are based on solid evidence, not just the computers say so.
Right.
Remember that facial recognition error example? Bad source images, bad results.
Yeah.
Specific risks include inadequate testing of the AI algorithms themselves, especially complex proprietary ones, and the potential for human bias to get embedded in the training data or the algorithm design, leading to biased results.
Okay. After all this work, the planning, fieldwork, testing, analysis, grappling with new TED case, how do auditors effectively communicate what they found? Get the message across.
Effective communication is paramount, absolutely key for a successful audit. The goal is reporting findings clearly, persuasively.
Getting buy-in.
Yeah, aiming for buy-in and agreement from auditees on corrective actions. Strong communication and negotiation skills are needed throughout the whole process, not just at the very end.
The sources talk about an exit interview. What's the purpose of that meeting?
The exit interview is crucial. It's a meeting with auditee management before the final report goes out.
Okay, a preview.
Kind of. It's a chance to discuss preliminary findings and recommendations, make sure the facts are right and material, negotiate on realism and cost-effectiveness of recommendations, discuss timelines for fixing things, helps avoid surprises.
And if there's disagreement, say on a finding or recommendation.
The auditor needs to clearly explain the significance. What's the risk? What are the potential consequences if it's not fixed?
Uh-huh.
And if they're asked for help implementing recommendations, the auditor has to be really careful to clarify their role is advisory, not executive, to protect their independence.
Right. Can't audit your own work later. Who typically receives the formal audit report?
The final report goes formally to the auditee and maybe the audit client if they're different. A summary of key activities and significant findings also routinely goes to the oversight body.
Like the audit committee.
Exactly, the audit committee.
Yeah.
Provides them with an independent view and a channel for potentially sensitive stuff.
What are the main goals the audit report itself is designed to achieve? What's its purpose?
Well, the source lists 6 key objectives. Formally present results. Officially close the engagement. Provide assurance and recommendations.
Okay.
Serve as a reference document. Be the basis for future follow-up. And help promote the credibility of the audit function itself.
What does a typical report structure look like? Is there a standard format?
Formats vary, but usually. Introduction objectives, scope, period covered, procedures performed. Then, findings often grouped logically, maybe by risk.
And the findings include?
Typically describe the condition found, the criteria not met, the cause, the risk or impact, and the recommendation. There's usually an overall conclusion or opinion on control adequacy.
Do they only report bad news?
No, good reports should include both deficiencies and positive findings, like effective controls or improvements made. Auditors decide what's included, exercising independence.
But considering the audience.
Yeah, management guidance on materiality for different audiences matters. Then management provides their response, planned actions, implementation dates for significant findings. And timeliness is important too.
And all that detailed work documented in the work papers, that's the foundation supporting everything in this final report.
Absolutely. The work papers are the essential written record. They provide the detailed evidence, the justification for everything in the report.
Proof it happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Shows compliance with standards, supports conclusions, includes all the details. Planning, procedures, evidence, findings, conclusions. Robust policies manage them, ensure integrity, guided by materiality for what actually makes it into the formal report.
This has been a deep dive into a complex but clearly critical process. How do audit functions make sure they maintain quality in these detailed procedures and keep improving?
Yeah, this raises that important question about the audit function's own quality assurance. There's oversight from the audit committee or whoever's designated for that. Audit leadership is directly responsible for the quality of each individual engagement. making sure documented procedures are followed, reviewing work papers, reviewing final deliverables.
So internal checks on the audit process itself, making sure the auditors are doing it right.
Exactly. Formal review processes tailored to different audit types based on risk. Plus, ongoing training and development for the team are crucial.
Keeping skills sharp.
Yeah, formal development plans, encouraging certifications, having a budget for continuous learning.
And is there continuous monitoring of the audit function's performance overall?
Yes, they monitor various things, analyzing trends from QA reviews, checking for potential impairments to independence, offered through self-reporting, ensuring compliance with certifications, tracking continuing professional education requirements. It all ensures the function stays effective, compliant, and credible.
Wow, okay. We've covered a lot of ground today, walking through the execution phase of an IS audit, from setting that detailed stage, defining objectives, navigating planning, fieldwork reporting,
Hmm.
understanding the critical role of audit programs, work papers, considering risks like fraud, integrating modern approaches like Agile,
Yeah, the agile part is fascinating.
and leveraging tech with data analytics, C8, and that emerging power of AI,
Yeah.
right through to communicating findings and ensuring quality.
Yeah, we've seen that successful execution is really a sophisticated blend. It's structured process, yes, but also specialized techniques, tools. Careful human judgment is still absolutely key, especially with evaluating evidence and interpreting outputs from complex tech like AI.
Right, the human element.
And that constant need for clear communication, adaptability, and just a commitment to quality at every single step.
So thinking about how powerful these modern tools are becoming, especially AI and data analytics, here's a thought. If IS auditors can increasingly use these tools to analyze every single transaction, every system log entry in near real time,
Yeah.
does that traditional concept of relying on statistical sampling for substantive testing, does it eventually become obsolete? Or will human judgment always be essential to interpret that vast ocean of data and decide what truly constitutes significant exception or anomaly worth investigating amidst all the noise?